Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Praise the Most High for you all join us again for our weekly Torah class. Pastor Kerry Battle of High Love Ministry. Excited that you all are here to be a part of our Torah study this morning. Amen. So we're going to start off with a word of prayer and we're going to get right on into it. Yahweh, thank you this morning for your mercy. Thank you for your loving kindness, Yah. We come before your presence with thanksgiving in our heart, humble before you. We pray, Yah, for your forgiveness of our sins. That you will forgive us as we forgive those who have sinned against us, Yah. That you will lead and guide us into all truth today. That you will teach us your word and nourish us, Yah. That you will increase us in our faith. We understand that faith comes by hearing and hearing by your word. We pray that you be with us, lead and guide us to all truth, convict us, build us up, help us, Yah, to draw closer to you, to have a relationship with you, a personal one, a lifestyle of thanksgiving and praise because of who you are. You are wonderful and awesome, and you are magnificent and marvelous. We thank you. We pray for this Torah class. I pray that you touch everyone that's listening, their minds, their spirits, their hearts, so that they can take heed to the word, apply to their everyday life, and have victory in you. So we thank you in Yeshua's name. Hallelujah. Amen. Amen. So this morning, our Torah portion, the name of our Torah portion is called Bo. Bo is the Hebrew word for goat. And we're starting this week. We're starting this week. Exodus 10. Remember last week, Moses released some of the plagues upon the people of Egypt. Yah's contending with Pharaoh. A lot of things we got out of that. A lot of things we got out of that lesson. So now this week, we're gonna continue with the plagues. We're gonna get to the tenth plague, or some call it the judgment. And we're gonna just expound on it. So let's praise Yah and let's go for it. Exodus 10:1 says, Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have made him and his servants hard-hearted, so that I can demonstrate these signs of mine among them, so that you can tell your son and grandson about what I did to Egypt, and about my signs that I demonstrated among them, so that you will all know that I am Yahuwah." Moshe and Aaron went into Pharaoh and said to him, Here is what Yahuwah Elohim of the Hebrews says. How much longer will you refuse to submit to me? Let my people go so that they can worship me. Otherwise, if you refuse to let my people go, tomorrow I'll bring locusts into your territory. One won't be able to see the ground, so completely will the locusts cover it. They will eat anything you still have that escaped the hail, including every tree and every growing in the field. They will fill your houses and those of your servants and all of the Egyptians. It will be like nothing your father or fathers have ever seen since the day they were born until the day. Then he turned back and left. So now we have a plague of locusts coming. God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh, hey, let them go. Why you continue to be so hard and refusing to submit? If you don't submit, then I'm going to send a plague of locusts. Now the locusts, that was the eighth plague. And they ate every green thing in sight in Egypt. And from that point, Moses was driven this time, out of Pharaoh's presence. Because now Pharaoh's beginning to get more so agitated. He's tired of it. He's stubborn. Much like many of us believers, Yah will continue to talk to us, give us chance after chance, and our hearts become so hardened that we can't even hear the word anymore. We can't even take heed to it anymore. All because we want to be who we want to be. We want to be the leader, the head, get our point across, or have our way. So now, and remember, the hail came. It struck in the garden, took everything out. Y'all gave them grace because he allowed people to get in from out of the storm, and then there were certain things that had not even come up yet that he allowed to stay. So he extended grace toward Pharaoh. His heart was still hard, but this time the locusts will come to eat every green thing, and even things that have not even came up yet, they can take out everything out because of Pharaoh's hard hardness. So verse 7 says, Pharaoh's servant said to him, his servants now, how much longer will this fellow be a snare for us? Let the people go and worship Yahuwah the Elohim. Don't you understand yet that Egypt is being destroyed? So Moshe and Aaron were brought to Pharaoh again, and he said to them, go, worship Adonai your Elohim, or Yahuwah your Elohim. But who is exactly going? Moshe answered, we will go with our young and our old, our sons and our daughters, and we will go with our flocks and herds, for we must celebrate a feast to Yahuwah. And Pharaoh said to him, Yahuwah certainly will be with you if I ever let you go with your children. It is clear that you are up to no good, nothing doing. Just the men among you may go and worship Yahuwah. That's what you wanted, isn't it? And they were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. And you see that? Pharaoh tells him that Yahuwah, listen to this. He says, certainly, Yahuwah will be with you if I ever let you go with your children. You see how Pharaoh's heart got? His servants came to him and said, hey, man, come on, let these people go worship their God. They brought Pharaoh in there just for him to do that. He made it more worse. And it shows he really didn't, it wasn't about Egypt. It wasn't about the people being destroyed. It was about Pharaoh. And Pharaoh made it about himself because the pharaohs, Egypt, the kings, considered themselves to be gods. So he felt a challenge. And what did he do? Stepped to the plate and said, Yahuwah will certainly be with you if I ever let y'all go out of Egypt. And then drove them out from his presence. Wow. So verse 12 says, Yahuwah said to Moshe, reach out your hand over the land of Egypt, so the locusts will invade the land and eat every plant that the hell is left. Moshe reached out his staff over the land of Egypt, and Yahuwah caused an east wind to blow on the land all day and all night. and in the morning, the east wind brought the locusts. The locusts went up over the land of Egypt and settled throughout Egypt's territory. It was an invasion more severe than it had ever been before or will ever be again. They completely covered the ground so that the ground looked black. They ate every plant growing from the ground and all the fruit of the trees left by the hill. Every plant, all the fruit of the trees that was left. Not one green thing remained, not a tree, and not a plant in the field in all the land of Egypt. So Pharaoh hurried and summoned Moshe and Aaron and said, I have sinned against Yahuwah your Elohim and against you. Now therefore please forgive me my sin just this once, and intercede with Yahuwah your Elohim, so that he will at least take away from me this deadly plague. He went out from Pharaoh and interceded with Yahuwah. Yahuwah reversed the wind and made it blow very strongly from the west. It took up the locusts and drove them into the Sea of Suf, or the Red Sea. Not one locust remained on the Egyptian soil, but Yahuwah made Pharaoh hard-hearted, and he didn't let the people of Israel go. Yahuwah said to Moshe, reach out your hand toward the sky, and there will be darkness over the land of Egypt, so thick it can be felt. Moshe reached out his hand toward the sky, and there was a thick darkness in the entire land of Egypt. For 3 days, people couldn't see each other, and no one went anywhere for 3 days, but all the people of Israel had light in their homes. Pharaoh summoned Moshe and said, go worship Yahuwah, only leave your flocks and herds behind. Your children may go with you. Moshe answered, you must also see to it that we have sacrifices and burnt offerings, so we can sacrifice to Yahuwah our Elohim. Our livestock will go with us, not a hoof will be left behind, because we must choose some of them to worship Yahuwah our Elohim, and we don't know which ones we will need to worship Yahuwah until we get there. But Yahuwah made Pharaoh's hard-hearted, and he would not let them go. Pharaoh said to them, get away from me. Get away from me. and you had better not see my face again, because the day you see my face, you will die. So Moshe answered, well spoken. I will see your face no more. Moshe answered, well spoken. I will see your face no more. Now this was the ninth stroke. The ninth stroke, this was worse than any other plague that they come on the land of Egypt already. It was a darkness that could be felt, and it covered all of Egypt, except for Goshen. Now listen, Hoshet is the Hebrew word for darkness. So in this darkness, you can feel it. It was tangible. It brought confusion, chaos, falsehood, and it was over the land of Egypt. Alfred Edersheim in his book says that the darkness was a great sandstorm, such as the camps in the southwest, and sometimes bring sandstorms in the early spring, but it was far more severe and intense. But listen, this is the ninth plague, and remember, every three plague that came, that was more severe than the first two. This ninth plague was more severe than every plague, and it also came without warning. It came without y'all warning Pharaoh, and it was over the land of Egypt. So now Pharaoh gets upset, mad, angry, super angry, and to the point that he says, if you come out before me again, you're gonna die. So he threatens to kill Moses. He's angry because he's defeated. He has things that's coming upon their land, and in his life that's affecting the Egyptians that he has no control over. He can't stop, And just a word or something. That's how many of us are, as believers. Whether you're a native-born Israelite, whether you're grafted in, or whatever. Sometimes we're so hard-hearted that it's hard for us to acknowledge Yah when He's doing things in our life, when He's speaking to us. We continue to keep doing the same thing. You often wonder why you have certain people who are just destroyed. Some that die young, living fast. All of a sudden they're gone. Think about that. Not everybody, but I'm sure that some of the people who was rebellious, hard-hearted, doing things that they shouldn't have done, was taken out of here all because of them refusing to submit. When He comes to your life, His pattern, He always introduces Himself. He lets you know who He is. Now, He's not asking. He's going to tell you, obey. Because He's established who He is. He's the creator of all things. He's the king of the universe. And when He came to Pharaoh, he tells Pharaoh who He is. I am the God. I am the Elohim of the Hebrews. Let my people go so they can go worship me. That was the request. Pharaoh's heart was hardened because he didn't even acknowledge Yah. First of all, the word says this Pharaoh grew, his father, the other Pharaoh grew, who didn't even know Joseph, didn't even have a regard for Joseph, and put the Hebrews into slavery, into captivity. Then this Pharaoh was raised up to carry on the legacy, to bring harsh punishment to the Hebrews and boasting. And he see these Hebrews as inferior people. And he see them as God poor, because Egyptian was dealing with the mystery Babylon religion, and they had many gods. As a matter of fact, every plague that they had symbolized a God that was being defeated by Yah. He defeated all of these Elohims that Egypt had as gods, from the frog to the plague to the lies, all that, until now the last one left standing is Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said, "Well, if you see me again, you shall die." So he pronounces his own death, the death of his own people, of his own firstborn, out of his own mouth. Listen to this, verse 11. Chapter 11 says this. Yahuwah said to Moshe, I am going to still bring one more plague on Pharaoh and Egypt. After that, he will let you leave there. When he does let you go, he will throw you out completely. Now, tell the people that every man is to ask his neighbor and every woman her neighbor for gold and silver jewelry. Yahuwah made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people of Israel, toward the people. Moreover, Moshe was regarded by Pharaoh's servants and the people as a very great man in the land of Egypt. Moshe said, here is what Yahuwah says. After midnight, I will go out into Egypt, and all the firstborn of the land of the temple will die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh sitting on his throne, to the firstborn of the slave girl at the handmill, and all the firstborn of the livestock. There will be a horrendous winter throughout all the land of Egypt. There has never been another like it, and will never be again. Not even a dog's growl will be heard against any of the people of Israel, neither against people, nor against animals. In this way you will realize that I am Yahuwah. That I am Yahuwah. That realize that Yahuwah distinguishes, between the Egyptians and Israel. All your servants will come down to me, prostrate themselves before me, and say, get out, you and all the people who follow us. After that, I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in the heat of anger. Yahuwah said to Moshe, Pharaoh will not listen to you, so that still more of my wonders will be shown in the land of Egypt. Moshe and Aharon did all these ones before Pharaoh. And Yahuwah had made Pharaoh hard-hearted, and he did this to the people, and he didn't let the people of Israel go. Wow. Now think about that. It made them hard-hearted, made Pharaoh hard-hearted. Now, this is a death judgment. But that's why I call it, I said it was, I say nine plagues in one stroke. The tenth one was a stroke of death that Yah brought on the land of Egypt. Now listen to this. Now look at this. Yah had touched everybody in Egypt's heart for them to give to the Hebrews. Now these are people in slavery, in captivity to the Egyptians, who was under harsh judgment, under servitude, under punishment. That Yah began to change the hearts of the Egyptians, and now they're giving them silver and silver jewelry, gold, everything for them to go. And then Yah tells Pharaoh through Moses, I'm going to bring death to you. I'm going to kill all the firstborn of Egypt, from you, Pharaoh, to the slave girl, to the handmaiden. No, from you, Pharaoh, to the slave girl at the handmill. And I'm going to kill all the firstborn of the livestock. And it's going to be a horrendous cry that's going to come up. But not even a dog's growl. A dog's growl will be heard in Israel. That means you didn't hear dog, you didn't hear nothing. Israel going to be silent, sound asleep, relaxing or whatever. After Passover, because they're going to do Passover. But guess what? Everything in Egypt from the firstborn is going to go. All because of Pharaoh's hard-heartedness and his disobedience toward Yah, his refusal to acknowledge Yah. So now, Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aharon in the land of Egypt. He said, you are to begin your calendar with this month. It will be the first month of the year for you. Speak to all the assembly of Israel and say, on the 10th day of this month, each man is to take a lamb or kid for his family, one per household, except that if the household is too small for a whole lamb or kid, then he and his next door neighbor should share one, dividing it into portions to the number of people eating it. Your animals must be without defect, a male in his first year, and you may choose it from either the sheep or the goats. So now we see the Yah's getting ready to do the Passover. Verse 6 says this. It says, you are to keep it until the 14th day of the month, and then the entire assembly of the community of Israel will slaughter it at dusk. They are to take some of the blood and smear it on the two sides and the top of the doorframe, at the entrance of the house, in which they are to eat it. That night they are to eat the meat roasted in fire. They are to eat it with matzah and mara or maror, bitter herbs. Don't eat it raw or boiled, but roast it in the fire with his head, the lower parts of his legs, and his inner organs. Let nothing of it remain till morning. If any of it does remain, burn it up completely. Here is how you are to eat it. With your belt fastened, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you are to eat it hurriedly. It is Yahuwah's Pesach, or Passover. For that night I will pass through the land of Egypt, and kill all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both men and animals, and I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt. I am Yahuwah. The blood will serve you as a sign, marking the houses where you are. When I see the blood, I will pass over. I will Pesach, pass over you. When I strike the land of Egypt, the death blow will not strike you. Now listen, this is Passover. This is the first Passover. And Yah is going to be the one that's going to come out to the camp. The Hebrews, ancient Hebrew thought is this. They see Yah as a mighty warrior who fights their battle. And that's the mindset that Yah wants us to have. That he's the one who fights our battle. He's the one that delivers us. This is a pattern we're going to see later on in our Torah portion about this. But this Passover lamb. Then they just Passover lamb, they had to put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. Put it on the doorpost. So because the blood of this lamb, when Yah sees his blood, he'll pass over. He will allow death to pass over and not harm the Israelites. But it will harm the Israelites' enemies. And the Israelites' enemies are Yah's enemies. So he tells them, eat this with the bitter herbs. The matzah. The matzah is unleavened bread that's sort of like a cracker, sort of like it's flat. And it represents sin being removed. Because Passover is an act of redemption. Not just a physical removal out of Egypt, but to bring Israel out, to bring everything in Egypt out of Israel. To bring all the falseness, all the chaos, all the simple things they've learned, those who were born in that land, out of. So the Passover represents the removal of the sin from their lives. The maror, the bitter herbs, is a remembrance of their harsh labor, the servitude, the punishment, the yoke they were under in Egypt. And they're to eat this in remembrance, but also eat the lamb, or the ram. It's about a year old, so that it was fully developed. Because the rams, they're mature as when they're one, so it's fully developed. So now they're to eat this ram, and put the ram's blood on the doorpost so that death can pass over them. Now that's a pattern, you all. You need to understand this. This is the pattern type. This is the pattern of our Mashiach, Yeshua, of HaMashiach. So now listen to this. Yah says he's going to strike the land of Egypt with a death blow. He's going to strike the land of Egypt with a death blow, but will not strike Israel. Now listen, Yah takes his love for his people very, very serious. Don't think because you're in something that Yah has forgotten about you, has forsaken you. He's working. That's why we have a responsibility to walk by our trust in him, to trust him, to have faith in him, because no matter what's going on, we should be able to believe and trust in what he's got, his plan. So listen to this. Verse 14. This will be a day for you to remember and celebrate as a festival to Yahuwah from generation to generation. You are celebrating it as a perpetual regulation. Let me push pause. Passover is something that we're supposed to celebrate forever. It's perpetual. It's ongoing. It's something that we must not stop doing. Here's the deceiving thing. Easter. Easter is deceiving. Because now we have people who say they believe in the Most High, or even we have certain people who call themselves Christians who believe in the Most High, and celebrate Easter. That has absolutely nothing to do with Scripture. As a matter of fact, they celebrate Easter and eat ham. Eat an unclean thing on a day that they say that the Messiah rose up. That's deceit from the adversary. The covenant, the feast we are to celebrate is the Passover. From generation after generation. God says in Exodus 2:14, he says, this will be a day for you to remember and celebrate as a festival to Yahuwah from generation to generation. You are to celebrate it by a perpetual regulation. Excuse me. For 7 days, you are to eat matzah. The Passover is the one day. Now we go into the feast of unleavened bread, or matzah. It says for 7 days, you are to eat matzah. On the first day, remove the leaven from your houses. For whoever eats hamatz, leavened bread, from the first to the 7th day, is to be cut off from Israel. On the first and 7th days, you are to have an assembly set aside for Yahuwah. On these days, no work is to be done except what each must do to prepare his food. You may not do that. You may do only that. You are to observe the festival of Matzah, for on this very day I brought you the visions out of the land of Egypt. Therefore, you are to observe this day from generation to generation by a perpetual regulation. From the evening of the 14th day to the first month until the evening of the 21st day, you are to eat matzah, unleavened bread, during those 7 days. No leaven is to be found in your houses. Whoever eats food with hamatz in it is to be cut off from the community of Israel. It doesn't matter whether he is a foreigner or a citizen of the land. Eat nothing with hamatz in it, leaven. Wherever you live, eat matzah. Now listen, eating the matzah, the matzah bread, we just say it's a flat bread. So when you eat it and take the leaven out of it, it represents being sin-free. Eating it with the leaven in it, the leaven represents the sin. So when you remove the sin, it's a pattern, it's a type, it's a physical illustration for a spiritual truth. You remove the sin, and you are to do this perpetually. He said, anyone who eats the leavened bread. So now, listen, this is a command from Yah to do this feast. To do the feast of unleavened bread, or the feast of matzah. And he says, anyone that does eat the leavened bread shall be cut off from his people, or cut off from the community of Israel, whether they are a citizen or a foreigner of the land. So now, we're to remove the sin. This is a command from God that we are to do perpetually, forever. We don't stop. That's where the great deception comes in, when the adversary tells us, well, you no longer have to follow the Torah or follow law. So you got people who stop celebrating this feast. So you got people who still hold in sin, keep sin. They don't remove it, because everything that Yah does has a purpose to it, and it points towards the Mashiach. Also, we have a ram the day before the Feast of Unleavened Bread. This ram or this lamb is to be slaughtered. Eat the ram with the staff in hand, with our sandals on, and eat it hurriedly, because Yah is bringing deliverance. Put the blood on the doorpost. After the death passed over, then we are to eat for 7 days unleavened bread. We get redeemed, delivered from sin. This is a pattern and a type. So, what was I at? I think verse 21. Verse 21 says this. Then Moshe called for all the leaders of Israel and said, select and take lambs for your families, and slaughter the Pesach lamb. the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop leaves and dip it in the blood, which is in the basin, and smear it on the two sides and the top of the door frame. Then none of you is going to go out the door of his house until morning. For Yahuwah will pass through and kill the Egyptians. But when he sees the blood on the top and on the two sides, Yahuwah will pass over the door and will not allow the slaughterer to enter your houses and kill you. You are to observe this as a law, you and your descendants forever. Forever. So now, listen, if someone tells you you don't have to follow Torah, you got to follow Torah. You got to do unleavened bread. Because y'all just told Moses, and Moses told the Hebrews, that you ought to, in Exodus 12:24, you ought to observe this as a law. You and your descendants forever. Not for 200 years, not for 1,000 years, not after the Mashiach die and resurrect. No, this is forever. Even HaMashiach had to celebrate Passover. So think about that. He did not do away with that. Matthew 5:17 says, do not think that I have come to abolish Torah. I have not come to abolish the Torah. Read it for yourself. Matthew 5:17-19. So, 25 says this, when you come to the land which Yahuwah will give you, as he promised, you are to observe this ceremony. When your children ask you, what do you mean by this ceremony? say, it is a sacrifice of Yahuwah's Pesach, Passover, because Yahuwah passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt when he killed the Egyptians but spared our houses. The people of Israel bowed their heads and worshiped. Then the people of Israel went and did as Yahuwah had ordered Moshe and Aharon. That is what they did. So we have to remember Yah's deliverance. Yah wants us to remember his deliverance. He wants us to remember his deliverance of our ancestors from Egypt, and also his deliverance of us out of sin. Yah does not want us to forget. This is something that's commanded. So when our children ask, excuse me, what do we mean by doing this ceremony? You got to tell them this is Yahuwah's Passover. Because he passed over the houses of the people of Israel. So in Egypt, so we got to understand this. Now listen, verse 29 says, at midnight, Yahuwah killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh sitting on his throne to the firstborn of the prisoners in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of livestock. Pharaoh got up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a horrendous dwelling in Egypt, for there wasn't a single house without something dead in it. He summoned Moshe and Aharon by night and said, Up and leave my people, both you and the people of Israel, and go. Serve Yahuwah as you said. Take both your flocks and your herds as you said, and get out of here. But bless me too. The Egyptians pressed to send the people out of the land quickly, because they said otherwise we'll all be dead. The people took their dough. Before it had become leavened, and wrapped their kneading bowls in their cloths on their shoulders. Then the people of Israel had done what Moshe had said. They had asked the Egyptians to give them silver and gold, jewelry and clothing. And Adonai and Yahuwah had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, that they had let them go, that they had let them have whatever they requested, thus plundered the Egyptians. Listen to this. I'm trying to say something. I don't think that people had caught this. But listen, we're gonna go back to verse 34. says the people took their dough before it had became leavened and wrapped their kneading bowls in their children, in their clothes on their shoulders. Now the command was to do what? Eat unleavened bread, right? The matzah. The matzah, the unleavened bread represents sin being removed from you. So when Yah delivered, when the death angel came and slaughtered all the Egyptian firstborn, and they pushed them out, they left before the sin. They left the unleavened bread. They was removed from the sin. That's a pattern of type. That's why it's mentioned. To see that the bread did not have time to rise, or the leaven get in. It was removed. So I'm seeing this, just for me looking at this, that Yah moved them after He redeemed them. At that moment, He removed them from that sin, out of the land of Egypt. That's what I saw from that when I was studying that, read that. So the people of Israel traveled from Ramses to Sukkot, some 600,000 men on foot, not counting children. A mixed crowd also went up with them, as well as livestock in large numbers, both flocks and herds. They baked matzah loaves from the dough they had brought out of Egypt, since it was unleavened, because they had been driven out of Egypt without time to prepare supplies for themselves. The time the people of Israel lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 430 years to the day, all of the visions of Adonai left the land of Egypt. This was a night when Yahuwah kept visual to bring them out of the land of Egypt. And the same night continues to be a night when Yahuwah keeps visual for all the people of Israel throughout their generation. Now listen, this is something serious. The Passover is something serious. It says this was a night when Yahuwah kept visual to bring them out of the land of Egypt. And this same night continues to be a night when Yahuwah keeps visual for all the people of Israel throughout the generation. So y'all keep visual of this. He remembers this. If He remembers it, then we should be able to remember it. We're responsible. We should remember this. So listen, Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aaron, this is regulation for the Passover lamb. No foreigner is to eat it. But if anyone has a slave he brought for money, when he has circumcised him, he may eat it. Neither a traveler nor a hired servant may eat it. It is to be eaten in one house. You are not to take any of the meat outside the house, and you are not to break any of his bones. The whole community of Israel is to keep it. If a foreigner stand with you must observe Yahuwah's Pesach, all his males must be circumcised. Then he may take part and observe it, for he will be like a citizen to the land. But no uncircumcised person is to eat it. The same teaching is to apply equal to all citizens and foreigners living among you. All the people of Israel did just as Yahuwah had ordered Moshe and Aaron. On this very day, Yahuwah brought the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt by the division. So now this is something that's supposed to be kept. If anybody wants to be a part of that Passover, has to be circumcised. Circumcision is the covenant of Abraham. You have to become part of Israel in order to participate in this feast. Because they got to be circumcised. And circumcision is the covenant. It represents the covenant. The Abrahamic covenant is circumcision. The Mosaic covenant is the Sabbath. And the renewed covenant is the sign is the seal of the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. Those are the seals of the covenant. So in order for you to be and not different covenants, all those religions basically carried on one covenant. The Abrahamic covenant and the Mosaic covenant because the Torah, the Shabbat was before even the Torah. But Yah's not replacing covenants. All of it actually the same thing. These are the seals of it. Let me go to we'll get to that later on in one of our discussions, in one of our teachings about the covenants, about the Abrahamic covenant, the Mosaic covenant, and what we call the renewed covenant, because there's nothing new about it. Yah puts his Torah on our inner parts through the Ruach HaKodesh. Anyway, so they came out of Egypt, delivered. And in order for you to become a part of this, you have to take on the covenant, of Israel. Kind of gas this morning. Excuse me, you all. Okay. Exodus 13 says, Yahuwah said to Moshe, set aside from me all the... Now, he killed all the firstborn of the Egyptians. All the firstborn, from the human being, from Pharaoh on the throne to the slave girl at the hand mill. To every animal in the field, every firstborn was killed. Now we see a redemption. Listen, look at this. Yahuwah said to Moshe, set aside for me all the firstborn. Whatever is firstborn from the womb among the people of Israel, both of humans and of animals, belongs to me. Moshe said to the people, remember this day on which you left Egypt, the abode of slavery, because Yahuwah, by the strength of his hand, has brought you out of this place. Do not eat hametz or hametz. That's leavened bread. Don't eat leavened bread. Hametz. You are leaving today in the month of Aviv. And when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amori, the Hivi, and the Yevusi, which is one of your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in the month. For 7 days you are to eat matzah, and the 7th day is to be a festival to you for Yahuwah. Matzah is to be eaten throughout the 7 days. Neither hametz nor leavening agents are to be seen with you throughout your territory. On that day you are to tell your son, it is because of what Yahuwah did for me when I left Egypt. Moreover, it will serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, that Yahuwah's Torah may be on your lips. Because with a strong hand Yahuwah brought you out of Egypt. Therefore you are to observe this regulation and its proper time year after year. When Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanite, as he swore to you and your ancestors, and give it to you, you are to set apart for Yahuwah everything that is firstborn from the womb. Every firstborn male will belong to Yahuwah. Every firstborn from a donkey you are to redeem with a lamb. But if you choose not to redeem it, you must break its neck. But from people you are to redeem every firstborn son. When at some time your sons ask you, what is this? Then say to him, the strong hand Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. When Pharaoh was unwilling to let us go, Yahuwah killed all the firstborn males in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of humans and the firstborn of animals. This is why I sacrifice to Yahuwah any male that is first from the womb of an animal. But all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. This will serve as a sign on your hand and as a front at the front of your headband, around your forehead, that which a strong hand Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt. So now, it said, this is why I sacrifice to Yahuwah any male that is first from the womb of an animal, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. Focus on that a little bit right there for us. The animal that came out of the womb, life was given for the firstborn. It was the blood of the animal. Actually, that y'all wanted. We'll get to that in the near future in our Torah class. I don't want to get ahead of myself with the sacrifices. and because we got different lessons on these things. So anyway, let's go to Jeremiah 46. Go to Jeremiah 46, verse 13 through 28. We saw Yahuwah stretch out his hand and deliver our ancestors, the children of Israel, from servitude, from bondage. Jeremiah 46. From bondage, from bondage. He redeemed them, gave them a feast to remember. He sets visual for Passover. He remembers that night. Then he wants you to honor and do the feast of unleavened bread, or the feast of matzah. This is a perpetual covenant from Yah to Israel. So we're going to go to 46, 13 through 28 in Jeremiah. It says, this word Yahuwah spoke to Jeremiah, or Jeremiah the prophet, concerning how Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, will come and attack the land of Egypt. Proclaim in Egypt, announce in Migdol, announce in Noph, and Tachpanhes, say, take your stand, get ready, for all around you the sword is destroying. Why has your strong one been overthrown? He failed to stand before Yahuwah. He failed to stand because Yahuwah pushed him down. He caused many to trip. Yes, they fell all over each other. They said, let's get up. Let's return to our people, back to the land where we were born, away from the sword that destroys. They cried there. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, makes noise, but he lets the right time for action slip by. As I live, says the king, whose name is Yahuwah Zavuot. When he comes, he will be as mighty as Tavar among the mountains, as Carmel next to the sea. Daughters living in Egypt, prepare what you need for exile. For Noph will become a ruin, laid waste, without inhabitant. Egypt is a beautiful female calf, but a horsefly from the north has come to attack her. Her verse's name is 2. That she had with her were like well-fed calves in a stable, but they too have withdrawn in retreat. They all ran away without standing their ground. For their day of disaster has come over them, the time for them to be punished. Egypt hits like a snake as the enemy's armies marches ahead, attacking her with their axes, like lumbermen chopping trees. They cut down her forest, says Yahuwah, for they cannot be numbered. Yes, there are more of them than locusts, far too many to count. The daughters of Egypt is put to shame, handed over to the people from the north. Yahuwah Zavuot, the Elohim of Israel, says, I will punish Ammon from No, Pharaoh and Egypt, with all her gods and kings. That is, Pharaoh and those who trust in him. I will hand them over to those who seek their lives, to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, and his servants. But afterwards, Egypt will be inhabited as in the past, says Yahuwah. Yet, don't be afraid, Yaakov, my servant. Don't be distressed, Israel. For I will save you from faraway places, and your offspring from the lands where they are held captive. Yaakov will return and be at peace, quiet, with no one to make him afraid. Don't be afraid, Yaakov, my servant, says Yahuwah, for I am with you, and I will finish off all the nations where I have scattered you. However, you I will not finish off. I will discipline you as you deserve, but not completely destroy you. Now listen, that's amazing, because everything is a pattern type. This is not only referring to the Israelites or the Hebrews that's in the exile, but it's also, I believe, referring to us today. Those are the Hebrews, Israelites that's in the diaspora. That Yah will bring us back and comfort us. But he's going to destroy Egypt. He's going to deal with him. He's going to deal with Pharaoh. He's the Lord of hosts, is what he's called himself. He says, he tells the daughters of Egypt in verse 19, daughters living in Egypt, prepare what you need for exile. You finna go. And so y'all promises to destroy Egypt, to destroy those who are attacking Israel or even having them captive, or who's bringing pressure on them. He promises to destroy all of Israel's enemies while giving Israel peace, telling us don't be distressed, that he will finish off our enemies. He promises to discipline us because of our disobedience, but he would not completely destroy us. Again, I want to tell people again, just from reading that, we're going to Luke 2, just from reading that, is that Yah has not forgotten about his people. Yah has not forgotten about Israel. He has not forsaken them. He has not let them go. He has not thrown them away. But he loves his people, and he is going to bring them out, bring us out. He did it once. He can do it again. So we're going to Luke 2 and 22. We're going to Luke 2 and 22. We're going to read through verse 24. Luke 2:22 says, when the time came for their purification, according to the Torah of Moshe, they took him to Jerusalem to present him to Yahuwah. As it is written in the Torah of Yahuwah, every firstborn male is to be consecrated to Yahuwah, and also to offer a sacrifice of a pair of doves or 2 young pigeons as required by the Torah of Yahuwah. So here's Yahuwah. So here's Yeshua, the Mashiach, being presented and consecrated. He's the firstborn of Miriam. And you'll see, even though Joseph hadn't slept with Miriam, Miriam was a virgin that Yah put Yeshua in her womb. She gave birth to a son, the firstborn son. And he was consecrated, set apart for Yah. And sacrifices were made. So let's go to John 19. John 19. We're going to read from verses 31 through 37. John 19, 31 through 37 reads, it was preparation day, and the Judeans did not want the body to remain on the stake on Shabbat, since it was an especially important Shabbat. So they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and bodies removed. The soldiers came and broke the legs of the first man, who had been put on a stake beside Yeshua, then the legs of the other one. But when they got to Yeshua and saw that he was already dead, they didn't break his legs. Moreover, one of the soldiers stabbed his side with his spear, and at once blood and water flowed. The man who saw it testified about it, and his testimony is true. And he knows that he tells the truth. So that you too can trust. For these things happen in order to fulfill the passage in the Tanakh that says not one of his bones will be broken. And again, another passage that says they will look at him whom they have pierced. Now Yeshua is the Passover lamb. This is a pattern. Exodus, we saw none of his bones shall be broken. He shall be whole. Yeshua didn't have a bone broken in his body. And he is Yeshua HaMashiach. He is the Lamb of Yah. He's the Savior of the world. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Yeshua HaMashiach is the Savior of the world. He came to redeem the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and everyone that wants to enter into the covenant promises of Israel is redeemed by the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach. So Acts 13, 16 and 17. Acts 13, 16 and 17 reads, excuse me. So Shaul stood, motioned his hand, and said, Men of Israel and God-fearers, listen. The God of this people, Israel, chose our fathers. He made the people great during a time when they were living as aliens in Egypt, and with a stretched out arm, he led them out of that land. So the Apostle Shaul, Paul says that he testifies that Yah, with an outstretched arm, led Israel out from Egypt, where they was living as aliens, as foreigners there. In Revelation 8, excuse me, Revelations 8, 6 through 9, 12. Revelations 8, I got to excuse me this morning, having some problems. This kind of gassy. I'm not trying to be rude, so please excuse me. So we're going to read Revelations 8 and 6. We're going to read through verses 9 and 12. It says, Now when the seven angels with seven shofars prepared to sound them, the first one sounded his shofar, and there came hell, and fire mingled with blood, and it was thrown down upon the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grasses burned up. The second angel sounded his shofar, and what looked like an enormous blazing mountain was hurled into the sea. A third of the sea turned to blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel sounded his shofar, and made a great star, blazing like a torch, fell down from the sky onto a third of the rivers and onto the springs of water. The name of the star was bitterness, and a third of the water became bitter, and many people died from the water that had been turned bitter. The fourth angel sounded his shofar, and a third of the sun was struck, also a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened. The day had a third less light, and the night was likewise. Then I looked, and I heard a lone eagle give a loud cry, as it flew in mid-heaven. Woe, woe, woe to the people living on the earth, because of the remaining blast from the three angels who have yet to sound their shofars. The fifth angel sounded his shofar, and I saw a star that had fallen out of heaven onto the earth, and he was given the key to the shaft leading to the abyss. He opened the shaft of the abyss, and there went up smoke from the shaft like the smoke of a huge furnace. The sun was darkening the sky too, by the smoke from the shaft. Then out of the smoke onto the earth came locusts, and they were given power like the power of scorpions on the earth. They were instructed not to harm the grass on the earth, nor any green plant or any green tree, but only the people who did not have the seal of Yah on their foreheads. The locusts were not allowed to kill them, only to inflict pain on them for 5 months, and the pain they caused was like the pain of a scorpion sting. In those days, people would seek death, but would not find it. They would long to die, but death would elude them. Now these locusts looked like horses outfitted for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold, and on their faces were like human faces. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like those of a lion. Their chests were like iron breastplates, and the sound of their wings was like the roar of many horses, and the chariots rushing to battle. They had tails like those of scorpions with stings, and in their tails were the power to hurt people for 5 months. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in our language, destroyer. The first war has passed, and those are still two woes to come. Now this is we see Yah. This is Revelations, and Yah is getting ready to do something on the earth, getting ready to actually redeem His people, coming to bring judgment, and we see how it's going to be devastating. But check out something: these things that look like locusts, they're going to sting people, and people are not going to be able to die. It's going to inflict pain upon people. A third of the sea going to turn to blood. Same pattern that happened in Exodus with the Nile River. Grass still going to be burnt up. Same pattern. So these things are going to happen for when Yah begins to redeem His people again, bring us out. The only ones who's going to be hurt are those who don't have the sign or the seal of Yah. Those who are not part of the covenant, but those who are part of the covenant will be protected. So we've seen Yah destroy our enemies before, and give us the Passover, redeem our firstborn. We have two feasts that we celebrate from this, the Passover, and then we have a 7-day feast of unleavened bread. And on the last day of the 7 days, it's a festival to Yahuwah, our Elohim. We have to remember this and tell it to our children, to our sons. Hey, listen, this is Yah bringing us out of bondage. We have to understand that Yah is going to destroy our enemies. He's going to destroy Egypt again. He's going to redeem His people. There is hope for the people of Israel. There is hope for the believers, those who are part of the Abrahamic covenant of the circumcision. And not necessarily now just your foreskin on your physical body, but those who have a circumcised heart. And we'll get into that more in the future also. But praise Yah for you all for our Torah class this morning. We're going to get ready to transition to our Torah, to our worship service, and so we hope to see you soon. So start in with a word of prayer. Yah, we thank you for your mercy and your loving kindness. Thank you, Yah, for being so good to us and keeping us. Yah, we ask you to help us to apply your word, take heed to your word, and grow in your word. Thank you, Father, for loving us and being kind and good to us. Help us, Yah, to stay humble and be submissive and repentant toward you and walk in your ways. We don't want to lose you. We don't want to be out of your purpose. We understand that we need you. So, Yah, we glorify you and praise you in Yeshua's name. Hallelujah.